grain of rice, a grain of rice is going to tip the scale. Just remember that, lads.
There's a small bit of a needle there.
Come on, Mayo, you've got to get Andy Moran into the game.
Our mission was to show that we're no longer the whipping boys of Munster.
Hello, everybody out there. How are you all doing? Happy Easter to you. Easter bank holiday Monday, very special time for all Irish people when our great men of 16 struck for freedom. This day, we the city taken at this stage, Mark, a lot of it anyway. Yeah, so it is a special time for all Irish people.
We on the Easter hunt just to the morning, were you?
No,
that was the first thing that greeted me now at 20 to 7 just to the morning with three smartphones saying, the Easter bunny has arrived. Come on, let's go. So
I told you, appreciate those moments, because when they're 19 and 20 and 22, you won't know where they are and inside in Cork City and then come home at all. You'll be saying to Jackie around 4 in the morning, did your man come in? No.
I know. Yeah. I suppose while we have an eye on them at the moment, I suppose we better mind them, but they're full of chocolate. They're full of chocolate for the last 24 hours and then they're bouncing around the walls.
So we can expect a few of them to bounce in the next hour or so.
No doubt. Well, the fact that Charlie finished number 1 on the juvenile fantasy hurling team, father and son double over the weekend, Dalo, but I know you're going to be getting to that later on in the show. I've had to wait till the final weekend of the National League. Finally giving up the wooden spoon to Shawnee McGrath. I don't see any trophy there yet. I'd be like Ian Lynch, half putting up the cup now today.
Yeah, they were very muted, weren't they? They remind you of another team of a few years back there when they won the league.
Yeah,
they just went up for it.
Yeah. Here should look another league medal. I don't know about the €2, but I suppose it's nice to have an old league medal in the pocket anyway, you know.
I see Joe Bradley was saying there the other day that the Mayo lads should chuck their league medals into the Mai and go after an All Ireland. And look at him this morning as well, huh? A lot of football on yesterday. I was in the Sunday game, obviously, and a lot of football going on, Mark. Great game in Ennis. Just to remind you of that there. Got
to tip the hat there, but it was well signposted a long ways out that game was always going to be a tricky assignment. And I can imagine now that the 25,000 that was spent in a 5-year plan and by the Cork County Board a couple of years ago will have to come into serious question. And I'm led to believe there's a director of football as well in the county. So I think now we'll take the Kilkenny side of things. We'll just pack the football and concentrate on hurling.
And so, as the great Dr. Phil would say, Hoagie, we're delighted to be joined by Brian Hogan. Hoagie, as the great Dr. Phil would say, so how's that working for you?
As a former Kilkenny hurler from the 70s said, the only good football is we put a knife in them all. That finished that was football in Kilkenny. Fan, yeah.
How are you, Hoagie?
I'll be quiet today, Dalo. I'm a week too late. I was caught at work last week and I had to listen to 4 Munster men talk about Kilkenny and how great they were. And now this week, I'm a bit more subdued. I know. But anyway. Look, you're beaten by Limerick. Sure, TJ's not going to redden you. At least if you lost to Cork yesterday, listen, stop. Yeah, true. TJ be gentleman. You know, he'd be very.
Well, fair play to you. You're one of the few Kilkenny people that managed to find your way out onto the motorway and down as far as the tunnel. And then Dalo, text me. Could you tell me where's a good place to park the car around Park Equive? That'll tell you now how unused to come into Park Equive, the fellas above a Leinster are. So, when you have a stadium like we have at the moment now, Hoagie, you're more than welcome.
All you need now is a few roads. All you need now is a few roads leading into it. Dunkettle Leinster, one of the busiest stretches of road in the country, and they filter down to one lane coming in. Oh, holy God! On the Easter bank holiday weekend, and a match on in Cork. It was like, did they want us to come down at all for this match?
Is it true, Mark? Is it true, Mark, that there was more from Cork there than Kilkenny?
There was a nice sprinkling of Cork people there now, to be fair. And I don't know whether they were there to see Limerick, or they actually were there to see Kilkenny get the small bit of a trimming. One or the other, I'd say. There was a lot of Cork fellas went home happy anyway. And Of course, the narrative now is the Cork didn't want to play in the final at all. They took a pull in the semi-final, which is totally untrue. But anyway,
I told you
it's
that
nice to see Limerick. Listen, Limerick were a small bit like Energy Me now in Cheltenham, right? Never came off the bridle at any stage and won pulling up.
Yeah. No doubt about it. TJ, congrats again. You're sick of it, but the 10-1 for the treble is looking good now anyway. That's the hard part out of the way, really, the league, because you're not really trying for that. Like, sound, TJ, sound.
Can't hear you, kid.
I'll never forget.
What?
Can you hear me now?
We have you now, I'd say, yeah.
I said I lived through the tough times. I'll never get sick of winning trophies from Limerick's point of view. It's another great performance. Look, obviously, always lovely to win a league title, a national title. These lads' third medal. So look, really, really, really good. Everything that John did worked in terms of apart from the opening 15 minutes, which was a little bit sketchy and didn't score from play. But once they got their house in order, they got the terms with Kilkenny very quick. We'll probably get
the bonfires in Gary Spillane.
No, there wasn't. I suppose essentially, look, the keenness has gone off to celebrations in terms of what these lads have done over the last number of years, and look, it's been fantastic. And as I said, down in Cork yesterday, again, beautiful stadium. I will give you that, Mark. I love going down there. Geographically, I will agree with Hogan. It's a bit tricky, all right, And the Kilkenny fellas, as I said, it's off the beaten track. But no, look, as I said, everything went according to plan. I was a tad worried, Dalo, beforehand. I thought missing Declan Hannon and Kyle Hayes.
Yeah, with that breaking news, TJ, you were able to tell us. I was on the way to Dublin, but you were able to tell us about Hannon. I don't know what was wrong with Kyle.
Kyle got some bit of a knock and trend. I think it's only kind of precautionary enough, right? But I think it's some sort of a leg injury, but I'm not 100% sure about that. But I thought they were missing Kyle, Declan, and Will O'Donoghue. I just felt, I looked at the Kilkenny squad and the panel that they had and the possibility of maybe TJ coming on for the last 10, 12 minutes. I thought that, that Derek had a nice, strong team out and well positioned. I was expecting Kilkenny to set up differently, Hoagie. We had forecasts going down in the car. We were kind of thinking that it could be maybe Richie Reid out sweep, or maybe you mightn't like to hear that in Kilkenny, and that everybody else would push up. But I felt their setup was a bit strange. I think when they look back and it's like giving Limerick that easy ball, which is David Burns at a freebie in the right hand side of the field getting those balls, and I just think that maybe when they look back, they'll feel that their setup might could have been different. They seem to play with one up top, Dalo, and in Oncodia, maybe Massey Keown every now and again. They try to crowd that maybe midfield half forward line was of theirs, we said Limerick's half back line, but it didn't really work because the Road Hegarty and the boys came back to field, opened up the forwards, and once Limerick got to grips with it and knew what Kilkenny were about, they their game kicked in and Kilkenny had no answer. What I was really, really surprised with was the second half from Kilkenny, Hoagie. I just felt there was nothing there. The intensity wasn't there. It was only Kilkenny-like to a degree. Limerick shot 20 wides, 15 of them in the second half. The second half was poor standard. There was a lot of mistakes in it. And I think when Hugh Lawler got the 14th point in the 52nd minute, I think, Dalo, from their home, they registered a free from Owen Cody. So I get as such an un-Kilkenny, it was probably the finish to the league, the way it kind of played all the way through. 17,000 at the game. There was more at the first round mark down in Cork when Limerick and Cork played, and it just kind of was very leaguey all the way through, really, wasn't it?
I think so. Hoagie, you had a lovely soft seat anyway, we know that, and he provided you with sandwiches and sausages and rashers and pudding and parking and everything like so.
No, I had to pass it up, Dalo. I had to handle it. In fairness to Landers, he came up trumps for me. I'll say it when it happens. I put out the SOS and he came up, but I got one seat, and after being away for a week traveling with work, there was no way I was heading off to the soft seat and leaving the other three down in the corner. So no, we got sorted, but no, fair play, Landers. Jesus, the match, yeah.
What's the mood like? It's not like I said it last night. It's not. I don't think there's any panic stations for Derek. He tried a few things during the league and got to the final. And will come out of Leinster. So I mean, but it wasn't a good performance. It wasn't a Kilkenny-like performance. No, there's not a panic. It's early days, and as TJ has mentioned, the league in general has been pretty, pedestrian. Maybe due to the structures or whatever it is, there's been a lack of, I suppose, a
a general lack of intensity, certainly of any of the matches I've gone to, but it was hugely disappointing from the point of view of the kind of the lack of intensity. Everything is associated, I suppose, with Kilkenny over the last 2 decades or whatever, in terms of putting it up to Limerick. And the second half just petered out, I mean, Limerick driving 15 wides, they got sloppy, but they had the match won. We didn't muster. We went 20 minutes without scoring. And it was the mistakes, trying to play, not playing ball to hands, dropping balls, making the wrong decision with the ball. I mean, how often did I couldn't understand, from our own puck outs, playing a short puck out to our full back line and then lumping it long in on top of a 2v1, put a long ball from the full back on top of Mossy Keoghan, who was marked by 2 Limerick defenders. Owen Murphy could have done that. And then when we did try and go long or go short, we're hitting balls up the centre of the field. There's a couple of occasions where we hit a ball from the full back line to Adrian Mullen or Blanchfield or Conor Fogarty, and they were marked. They were hitting it into traffic. Just poor decision making and execution, and then just the general lack of intensity as well. Was a disappointment. It was a league final. Apart from the first 15 minutes, once Limerick kind of settled into it and got a couple of scores and got the goal, we never really kind of threatened after that. And even, we did a lot of hurling in front of Limerick. Our forward line, we were winning possession, but carrying the ball back out the field. Never really turning, standing them up, facing them up, just asking a few questions. So we're carrying the ball back out the field and then shooting from 50, 60 yards. And then, as TJ has mentioned, from a Limerick puck out situation, we stood off them, and our 3 inside forward line were rotating. There's come out the field at one stage. Billy Drennan picked up a ball on his own half back line, where you want him close to goal, which is okay. I understand you're bringing bodies back out the field, but you're essentially giving them a platform. You're allowing Nash, you're allowing Finn to take possession of the ball and then work it out. And you can't, like I'm saying, you cannot stand off Limerick. Now I understand that the other side of it is if you push up on them, they go along to the likes of Hegarty or these. But I've seen it. You show too much respect. You give them possession. They have that game down. They're the best in the country at it. And I just feel like you're conceding straight away to them. And then when you do try and press them, we were pressing in 3s and 4s. And they'll always find the extra man, whether they recycle it back to Nicky Quaid or they recycle it or give it to Dara Dunham in midfield or whoever. You have to push as 15 and just back yourselves. And I think all those elements, just played into Limerick's hands. And yeah, they were frightening, like they're just in terms of the way when they got into their flow with the personnel they were missing. We just had no answer for them on the day. I think coming into the match, I felt myself, like obviously we were coming down as any Kilkenny team does, looking to win the match. But with the personnel, with the youngsters in, coming in, I thought if we can put it up to Limerick, stay in touch. I felt we were going to learn more from this match than any of the rest of the league campaign. We probably did learn a fair bit, but not in the manner I suppose I was hoping.
Would it be an element, Hoagie, of him? And I've accused loads of teams of this now, all league, and anytime you've been on, you know that. Would there be an element of maybe Derek knows? I think he's fairly confident he'll come out of Leinster. I think we can nearly say Galway and Kilkenny will come out of Leinster. I would imagine. I think it's a fight out then. Wexford not in great form. Dublin in transition, and some possibly might fancy a scalp. So might there be an element of Derek saying, well, I think I know how we can beat them. I mean, he was involved with Brian last year, came close in the All-Ireland. Would there be an element of him just throwing a curveball, just saying, look, I'm going to just concede the puck outs, let Finn pop a pass to Burns, just be relatively passive? I don't know. There was no signs of that in the first 10 minutes.
I don't think so. I mean, knowing the personnel involved, like knowing Derek and Peter Barry and Ricey, like it would go against everything that we've, I suppose, been exposed to with Brian and that you put your foot in the brake and you kind of, I just couldn't see that happening. Look, okay, right, you're not going to be, going to full tilt like you are in Championship, in 2 months' time. Okay, that's fine. But I guess what we always would have looked for was at intent. You know, so mistakes will be made, etc., but it's the intent. I felt, I don't know, maybe it's a bit hard. Did we lose confidence, or do we drop the heads a bit? You know, when Limerick pulled away, maybe a bit harsh, but it was just that lack of drive, lack of intent from us, which it has never been a case before. And I couldn't see a situation where the lads were saying, look, you're trying to be too clever. Let's hold back. I mean, it's a national title, you know, and I think it would have served them better anyway to go at it and try those things that they're going to be looking at later in the championship, whether that's pushing up on the puck out. I mean, because you're not going to know if it's going to work. This was a time to test it, and then you get to refine it for later in the year if you get there and you get to face Limerick. I think, to be honest, I couldn't see it just from the environment I've been in with the lads over the number of years. I couldn't see a situation where it's like, no, we'll hold back now because we'll meet later in the year. I mean, you know, I think that it doesn't work. You know, you can't switch it on and off. I'm a firm believer in that. I think you have to go and impose, play your own game and play what's in front of you, because there's a lot of hurling to be done. There's no guarantees we'll meet these guys later on in the year. You know what I mean? It's very presumptuous to say that, you know, we'll see them in 2 months or, you know, in 6 weeks' time. There's no guarantee at all that that's going to happen. So no, I don't think so personally.
I think he probably will, though, be at a semi or a final. I do think that might occur, but yeah, I hear what you're saying. It's not in your DNA. Mark, do you think there's an element of, and I certainly know was managing while Hoagie and his clan were dominating the game, and there was certain points in games with the Dubs, especially now. I only really managed again. 06 was the first of the 4 in a row. I was with Clare that year, beat us in the semi-final. Good game. Fairness, went down to the wire. Henry got a late goal. But sometimes with the Dubs, I often felt, I'm watching other teams at the time, when Kenny would turn the screw, the heads would kind of drop. Like, you know, and is that even happening to Kilkenny now with this Limerick team, who we'd say be the last team that would happen to? You know, we'd even allow our own counties to fall into that bracket and say, Jesus, they're just too good, and we can't cope with them, and now they're turning it on, and look who's coming off the bench now. And is there even an element of that creeping in now, whereas Kilkenny even had dropped the heads like 10 minutes into the second half?
Yeah, I think that'll probably apply to every team in the country at the moment with how good Limerick are going, Anthony. They are just a runaway train at this moment in time. As the lads have already mentioned, when you consider Declan Hannon, Hayes, the Terminator not playing yesterday.
Will O'Donoghue now, for anyone who doesn't know it.
Yeah. I met him actually above in the premium afterwards, and he was still fired up in the matches, nearly 2 hours old at this stage, like, you know. So
was he still fancying a goal to like?
Oh, actually, I gave him a little bit of a dark on the shoulder. He didn't appreciate it at all.
You want to be careful.
I met James Ryan, the team doctor, as well. Like, you know, I congratulated him, and we were lucky enough to bump into him and Enna Shannon on the previous Saturday night, and he had Mick Mackey's, I think, grandson with him. I think, now I might be wrong in saying that. They ended up in Mox on Saturday night, and they met Jimmy Barry Murphy, so they had a great night. And but like I just said, like, you know, with the injuries and stuff, and that. So Declan, he said, was sick, and Kyle had a small nick in his calf and stuff like that. And I said, what about the suspension? So look, he needed a day off, like, you know, because there was no need to do any enforcing today against the Kilkenny lads, like, you know. So amazing when the enforcer was out that the man of the match happened to be Dalo O'Donovan, that he was allowed to blossom himself and bloom. But anyway, coming back to your original question, I just think this team is so physically strong, and their hurling ability is so far ahead of everybody else's that you just can't get through them. Now, Adrian Mullen is a very fit, strong lad, and there was one clash in the first half, and I think it might have been against Garrod Hegarty, and you could hear the clatter above in the stand, and Garrod Hegarty just bounced up and drove on, and Mullen took, you know, after it takes a moment when he's after getting the clatter like that, you know he's after being winded. And I actually think just physically you can't get past this Limerick team, and they slowly but surely wear you down that you actually have nothing left inside the tank. And they're continuing to keep going because of their physical conditioning and their strength. And I think that is a big part of Limerick's makeup right now. but that's not taking away from their hurling ability. So the one thing that is totally noticeable is that when they hit a ball 20, 30, 40 yards, it's straight into their teammate's hand, right?
Unbelievable.
So the ball isn't going to the ground. They're not taking an extra touch. And like Brian, like in Kilkenny's scenario, Kilkenny have a new manager for, they've had a one style really for 25 years. And I'm wrong in saying one style because Brian Cody has adapted his style. But in terms of this current style of play, which is short passing game, keeping possession, so that takes years to actually hone that. And when you're going against a culture that has been, a physically aggressive team, fantastic in the air, area ability, Tommy Welsh, JJ Delaney, those was not the biggest lads in the world, but brilliant in the air. And like you go then to hooking balls 30, 40 yards across the field, that's totally alien to Kilkenny. So I think, it's not even Kilkenny, it's every team at the moment that are going to take on Limerick. They're going to hit that. I suppose you consider it in running or the marathon, you hit the wall. I think every team in the country are going to hit the wall at some stage against Limerick. And the question is then, how do you get over that? Well, like if you start taking the ball into contact against Limerick, you're going to be swallowed up. If you leave a Limerick man loose, you're going to be swallowed up because they have no egos. They are playing to a team ethos. They will funnel the ball around to the man in a better position all of the time and then get the shooter on at the end. So all those things considered, I think, Anthony, we're all playing for second place at this moment in time. And the only person who's the big loser out of yesterday would be poor old Paddy McAuliffe, who, as TJ mentioned a couple of weeks ago, he lost his wife, right? Okay, Paddy, we give you your sympathies, but the fact that TJ is on a 10-1 for the league, the Munster title, and the All-Ireland, I think if there's a cash out available now, he probably would be given 8 or 9 at this stage.
He would. That's for sure he would.
Yeah.
And you're right on that, Mark, with the egos. Like no score from play yesterday from Keane, Hegarty, or Casey, and it doesn't matter, doesn't matter.
No.
And there was a definite switch into looking to create the goal scoring chances, which were missing. Keane Lynch's ball into Shamey for Gillan's goal. Savage, Keane Lynch could have popped that ball over after making a huge catch. TJ, and I'll get you to throw it over to Hogan then afterwards, right? Just from a Kilkenny point of view, and there's a couple of things I'll touch on as well. Paul Dwyer was a bit severe on the hand pass, but I think that will also stand to ye. It'll work on now for the next couple of weeks that we're being clamped on. Just from the Kilkenny point of view, right? So I'm going back, to last year's team. Probably only really missing TJ. Mikey Carey's gone for the year, so probably only missing TJ really, who will play and was ready to go. And I think probably a proper decision by Derek not to throw him in because the game was gone. Let him play against Westmeath a couple of weeks' time and get himself rolling. And he looks in great condition. But Tommy Walsh to fullback, Hugh Lawler, the All-Star fullback to centre back. I know now, Hoagie, these fellas have shown they can do it at club level. The Porrick Walsh experiment, 11 back to 4. Billy Ryan starting at midfield, Paddy Deegan wing forward. Is this something, do you think now that Derek will look at TJ and say, oh, hang on here now, we were a bit porous in the middle. Not so much Hugh's fault, because Hugh held Keane scoreless effectively, if you want to look at it like that. I think he was probably one of the best players ahead, along with Adrian Mullen. And yet, they looked kind of porous at full-back. In terms of the ball was going in, was very good ball as well. I'll have to say that. It was very good ball, but they were out in front, inside. Two boys look really sharp. And can you have a bit of a template that can revert back to automatically? He has looked at a few things. I know Paddy Deegan has played wing forward for Loughlin's and has done well there, but at club level, that can be easily more effective than county level. It
can, and I think Dalo, the point that we were making all through the league about getting to a league final was that, let's say, if something happened like happened yesterday, Kilkenny, is do you want to go down, let's say, a 2-week or 3-week transition where you want to change things back or change things again, because this has kind of worked for them to get them to the league final. I think some of the stuff that the Kilkenny did in the first half, like Pádraig will be really disappointed with his effort for the goal. He just either lost sight of it for a second or let Gillan get first run on him. But as a cornerback, that was just poor from him.
It was a perfect Gillan ball, that TJ. Can I say that? Shamey looked up. angle ball. Glenn is kind of 4 steps to your right, and he loves coming across then with the hand, doesn't he?
I know, but you picture someone like Jackie Turrell in that situation. Like, what does he do? Do you know what I mean? Like,
penalty, showing a yellow card.
Yeah, possibly. But I'm just saying, I'm just saying, it's a typical cornerback play in that you've got to nullify the threat. I think he'd be disappointed when he looks back on it. There was 1 or 2 other plays, like actually Porrick won a lovely ball. He was beating Gillan out in front of him. Paddy Deegan just stopped the ball, and then Gillan kicked it away, and Gillan put it over the bar. So it was stuff in the first half that just wasn't like them. And I think they were in between a couple of plays. Like you made a point here: are Limerick inside people's heads and the way they play? I think they definitely are. Right? Like Blanchfield did a good job in Groat Hegarty. His role was very, very straightforward in that you just went with him, and you did a good job and marked him pretty well. In other cases, I just didn't know what they were doing with their forwards. Adrian Mullen, to be fair to him, got plenty of possession and got into nice pockets of space and scored 3 points, and maybe could have had 1 or 2 more. But outside of that, it was hard to know, like, the forwards as to exactly how they were getting set up. And on Limerick's puck out, we know, and I've mentioned before about the old adage about that if you give a good team the ball, they might give it back to you. And if you give this Limerick team, which is a very good team, the ball, they're going to hurt you. And like giving them freebies and Dermot Burns allowed to pop into that space and zing balls into the forwards, it's very, very difficult. Now, like we'll talk in a while about maybe the transition from league to championship and the difference that's there and the intensity being up. Like there was no intensity whatsoever. And Mark made a point about Limerick's physicality. Perfect, and I take the point. But there was no physicality whatsoever in the second half of this game. There was nothing. It was challenge game. It was zero. Like, so I'm not even sure I can make a play. I think one of the major pluses for Limerick would be the form of Seamus Flanagan. I think the runs that he makes and the difference that when himself and Gillan play up top, that they are just very, very difficult duo because of maybe the difference and the runs he makes, the 45-degree angle runs to the sideline, leaving space for Gillan. I think that's a massive plus for John to have him back in that kind of form and like just buzzing. Like, and he scored 3 points. As for me yesterday, he was very close to man of the match. I thought he really led the line really, really well, making the goal for Gillan as well. Like, and you know, I like you're on about egos. Like when Keane got that ball for Aaron Gillan's goal, like, right, how many centre forwards in that position just have a shot for a point? Do you know what I mean? But he's looking to create something. Just as you said there, Dalo, it's a perfect ball to his hand. He's on the half a loop and he's gone. I mean, very, very difficult to mark. Like, so, yeah, real positive for me for Limerick would be the form of Seamus Flanagan yesterday.
Yeah, and Hoagie, just to throw it to you then, do you think Derek will look back and say, hang on, Petty, maybe wing back, Petty, centre field, Billy Ryan inside, Hugh back to 3, maybe Porrick out to 5 or even 6, or Richie into 6. You think he'd be tempted to say, or will he just say it was Limerick, look, I'm going to stick with this?
Yeah, look, to be fair to Derek, I think he has used the league well in terms of looking at these options. I think we all would have agreed at the beginning of the season, you know, to come out of the league, that's what he needed to do to put himself in a stronger position, was to mix things up, look at these options. To be fair, I suppose, to Paddy jarred his knee in the first couple of minutes and he wasn't 100%. I was talking to the team doctor afterwards, you know, that's not an excuse, but you know yourself when we've all been there, you pick up a knock early on and you're putting yourself through it. You know, saying that incident with Porrick, I was laughing when TJ was telling it. I was pulling my hair out. It was true. In fairness to the two of them, they were nearly trying too hard. You know, that kind of way. The thing was to step away and let Porrick. Porrick was coming forward. Allow him to get his momentum was driving forward. Let him go. You know, and you're like, oh God. And there was numerous instances like that. Like Owen Murphy, who's normally flawless for us. He was speeding up the puck outs when he needed to slow him down. And as a result, he had one puck out that was intercepted and back over the bar, which is very uncharacteristic for Owen. And you were just saying, Jesus, slow the match down. Let's stabilise things a little bit here because Limerick will run away from us.
He'd be even a bit disappointed, Hoagie.
He will. I know, look, he will.
With Barry Nash's goal, yeah.
Yeah. And look, he's class, you know, and he'll be his own critic. In terms of the other options, I mean, Hugh did great. Look, he's my own club man. He has all the ingredients. He can hurl anywhere in the back line. You know, I would have liked to have seen him driving forward a bit more. he had one opportunity in the first half where he played a lovely dink ball off the ground. I think it was to Billy Drennan. He could have put it over the bar, you know, and I think against the likes of Limerick, you need that scoring threat out the field to draw Limerick out. You have to, you know, we'll obviously come on to it, but you see the range of scores that Limerick get from the cornerbacks through to their halfbacks, you know, and but he does give you an option. I mean, he's a physical, he's a big, athletic guy, and he matches up well with some of the Limerick lads in that half forward. And you could see what they were doing with Blanchfield on the other side, in fairness to Derek. And I think both of those matchups, you know, in terms of worked out reasonably well in terms of keeping Hegarty and Lynch, you know, reasonably quiet, so to say. But you know, the forwards, I mean, you'd have to say, aside from Adrian Mullen, you couldn't really pick out any of the rest of the lads that showed up, you know, yesterday. Billy hit his frees, but he's only a young lad. You can't expect him, you know, this was a real kind of step up for him against Sean Finn. But the rest of them, I mean, Billy missed a point early on. He mishit the ball, dropped into the goalie's hand. He caught a great ball in the second half, turned his man, and then threw a poor hand pass, you know, straight to Nicky Quaid when there was a half goal chance. You know, these small things. And I just, again, you have to give credit to Limerick, like that kind of pressure that they put on. They're a serious outfit, and the physique of them. Mark mentioned it, like that does wear you down. And again, I know from my own days, you know, when you know you kind of have that physical edge on the opposition, you use it, you know, and you can feel it almost in the opposition team. And the last 20 minutes, they're starting to tire, they're starting to wear, you know, to get leggy. And you know, you've got the bench then to bring on as well. You know, you can feel the team start to wilt a little bit. And you know, it was a tough day at the office for Kilkenny, you know, and there was very few, you know, and again in the forward line, the scoring threat, we just didn't really have. We didn't have a consistent threat aside from Adrian Mullen. I thought he was outstanding. I thought he really took the game to Limerick at patches. And then look, to be fair to the lads, they did the right thing. They brought him off after I think it was around 50 minutes or so, because he hasn't a huge amount of hurling done. So yeah, the temptation I'm sure was to leave him on, but you know, it's the right thing to do with championship down around the corner. But yeah, look, you try these things.
One thing, one strange decision for me now, right? And it might be for today, right? Like in terms of the panel that played in the semi-final, Richie Reid, Billy Ryan, Adrian Mullen, TJ Reid came into the panel, okay? And what I was really surprised with was that Timmy Clifford and Garrod Dunn were left on the panel when you were playing under 20 over the weekend, that they denied your under 20s two of their better players. I always thought Billy Drennan wasn't going to be released because he's had an outstanding league. He's been brilliant on the freeze. But I just thought Timmy Clifford and Garrod Dunn being on the panel when you had brought four fellas into the panel from the semi-final, I thought they should have been left go with the under 20s over the weekend. And that was a strange decision for me because you were beaten by Wexford over the weekend without three of your better players. But like ultimately, Timmy Clifford and Garrod Dunn, they got a small bit of game time yesterday. They'd have been Kilkenny as a county would have been better served, I felt, if the two lads were released to the under 20s.
And the 20s is fairly competitive in Leinster now. You see Dublin beating Offaly, good Offaly team. Galway obviously is well in there, and Wexford with the win up now as well against Kilkenny. So that'll be tight enough division. Again, I think the rule is all wrong. That match should be on Wednesday night, and the boys should be allowed play. You know. I heard one or two people talking about that after the match. All right, and it's been a bad weekend all round with the minors losing, 20s losing, and now the seniors. But like again, I think this is one of these cases where. I hear what you're saying, Mark. I think that the result dictates everything. If we had won yesterday, there wouldn't be a murmur about it. And I think because it wasn't like knockout, there's a perception now with the way the results went, we could be in a spot of bother, but there was a perception because of the round robin, you know, and it wasn't a do or die that, like, everything filters from the Kilkenny team at the senior team, and I've no doubt that Derek felt these guys are going to play a part. He brought them in fairness, you know, so. It wasn't the case that we'll save him and let him play the under 20s. He obviously feels like they're genuinely have something to offer at the senior level, you know, and that's why he wants them on the bench. But
and just to reiterate what the rule now, Anthony, the new rule didn't apply yesterday because it was a league match yesterday. the new rule, which
Oh, yeah.
is a 7-day rule between under 20 and senior, is for championship. So the player is only allowed to play one championship game within a 7-day period. But you're right. I think if the Wexford Kilkenny under 20 game was on Wednesday night, I think all those three lads would have been available. I said, because the rule didn't apply to the league to Wednesday night if the game was on Wednesday night. So
yeah, I know for Clare they play Waterford, I think, on Wednesday night, and after the 2 draws with Limerick and Tip, it's possibly a must win, because Cork, to be honest, I thought were very impressive last week against Tip. They really look good. Ben Cunningham, Jesus, he'll be starting for the seniors surely, the way he played in that match. But
yeah, but if you saw him against
but just to make the point that if Clare don't go down into Dungarvan and win, they'll be under fierce pressure, because Cork are good and look good, and Clare would possibly have to face Cork without Adam Hogan at least, and maybe one more, because of the rule. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Because it will be the week of the Tip game. So that's put fierce pressure on this to get the result Wednesday night. You know, it's wrong, really. I think, you know, there was always that, you know.
Dalo and Hogan, can we just go back to Kilkenny? I suppose the influence of TJ Reid in the All-Ireland final last year, as Hogan just touched on there, when Kilkenny hit that sticky patch, you take the first half of the All-Ireland final, TJ's able to win primary possession. Like, he won the freeze, he made a couple of scores. Like, was maybe Derek looking at this forward line under pressure without TJ? I'm assuming that we will still see him in the first 15 come championship.
Yeah, I think that the difference between both days, TJ, was like last August we came away obviously hugely disappointed with the result, but there was a huge pride in the way the team had kind of fronted up to this Limerick machine, and you know it was a genuine contest, and there was something we felt there's building here, you know. Whereas yesterday that wasn't the case at all, and I guess what were you to learn? You know, bringing TJ on yesterday, what were you going to learn? You know, I mean, TJ has done everything, proved everything, so you know exactly what we're going to get. And TJ, without doubt, he'll be in the team for come championship. There's no doubt about it. And you know, again, it comes back to we weren't putting the handbrake up at all, you know. But I think Derek was like, these guys have to experience this, you know. I guess they have to find a way out. TJ can't be the go-to man every time when we're in a hole, you know, to win that primary possession or to make that big play, you know. And we didn't have, you know, we didn't have those options yesterday, particularly when Adrian was taken off, you know. But like he will, you know, he'll be there come championship, you know, and he'll be pulling the strings, you know, in a different way to the way maybe he has done over maybe 5 years ago, you know. But he's an intelligent player. He'll find those pockets of space, a little bit like Keane Lynch, the way he can just float around, but he'll always be on, you know, he'll get on the ball and he'll make things happen. But yeah, I think, you know, it was the right decision not to bring him on yesterday. Unfortunately, there just wasn't other options there to step up.
I'd say maybe once Gillane got the goal anyway, that he probably just said,
yeah,
even TJ can't. If there was 3-4 points in it with 7-8 minutes to go, I'd say he might have popped him, but just the way it was gone, leave it, and we lick our wounds for today, and we'll have him. I felt anyway. TJ, I just think teams are getting that. I said it earlier, there is that bit of mental block on Limerick. I just think teams are setting up a bit. I'm only going by the league now, because the championship obviously was a lot closer last year in an awful lot of games. Yet, Casey's back and the Wizard is back at centre forward. Like, so that's a huge difference from last year for everybody. Everybody has to consider that going forward. They're at full strength, or look like they will be at full strength. Hopefully, Mike Casey thought he nearly rolled the ankle again yesterday, but he played on, and you know, you'd be just always worried the fella that has picked up a few. But surely teams should be looking at like Barry Nash goal. Like, I mean, it's just poor old Hugh Lawler was the last one in view trying to chase him back, and he certainly wasn't his man. Like, surely you should be saying to Nicky Quaid, pick out who you perceive is the worst. Now, that's very hard to say, because they're all good ball handlers, they're all good ball strikers, but maybe the weakest man to deliver the ball. Would have done it myself with the Dubs a couple of times, encouraging the Kilkenny or the Tip goalie or whatever, the Limerick goalie or the Clare goalie, to go to a guy that I believed wasn't the most comfortable guy in possession. Great defender, maybe. Like, allowing it going to Sean Finn, Barry Nash, you know, Burns. It's license for saying your bet. Like, surely you should be pinning the two of them down you should be saying, I don't know who. Maybe Mike Casey, maybe Dan Morrissey. Maybe they're not quite as, they're very good now, don't get me wrong. They rarely make a mistake on the ball. But maybe their delivery of that 40, 50-yard pass, not quite as good as the other three boys, let's say. Or Hannon, obviously, if he's there. And Kyle. It's a tough one now. There's a lot. But, you know, we've made the point that Blanchfield did a good job on Hago. Relatively, you know, he did a fair job on him. He went man. He's as big as him. There's guys out there, you know, we said like Joseph Cooney, fellas like that can match up physically to him. And surely that's maybe a template, maybe to try and take on Limerick. It's better than what we saw yesterday. I just thought the lack of Kilkenny physicality for me, like Barry Nash to be allowed to make that run, that wouldn't have just happened in another era.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you, Dalo, in everything you're saying there. Like, whatever the solution is, right, and we're going to get, let's say, perceived good coaches looking at these last two games that Limerick play in the same manner, more or less, right. To be fair to John and Paul, they and the management team, they have a brilliant knack of just moving a piece or two, whether it is Gerard Hegarty back 20 yards or Peter Casey out, whatever it is, which kind of fills one pocket of space, opens another pocket of space. So their ability to do that and know what the opposition is doing is very, very smart and one of their big fortes. However, the point you're making there is, whatever the solution to the opposition getting to grips with Limerick is, for me, it definitely isn't leaving those boys free. That definitely isn't in the solution, I can tell you that. So it'll be interesting to see in the championship, like, obviously Davies had 5 weeks to study this and he'll be chomping at the bit, right? And he'll have been looking at all these things forensically to see what way does he set up. But like in the case of Barry Nash, if you bring, let's say, Kilkenny's full forward line out and then there's a mire of people involved there, it does give Barry that kind of, because there's a good few people there, right? He's not in a one-on-one situation in his position in the field. It gives him the license to bomb on because he knows that the other guys are only 10, 15 yards away and they can cover him. But it's a great move, in fairness, by John and Paul, to be able to give him that license to say once or twice, just go for it. Like it's another piece now that the opposition have to work on and have to look at in terms of when you're doing your analysis on Limerick. But I just think that their ability to transition, let's say, little moves, like I can't play chess, but like they just make space by making a couple of moves. Whether they come back to field, I felt in the last two games against Tip and against Kilkenny, they just moved the pocket by about 20 yards back to field. They crowded their own back line, created a bit of space, and then their delivery of ball is excellent. But I do agree with you. The way Dermot Burns can strike a ball, the length of the field practically, right? To give him the opportunity to get a ball, to have 2 or 3 seconds to have a look, right? Then the guy at the far side of the field, right? He can go in behind or in front and dummy run. Like, sure, it's impossible to mark there if the ball is good. And in a lot of the time, the ball is good.
Yeah, and looking ahead, Davey has been a well-known man to come up with plans, Mark. He often told me he had 6 or 7 game plans and he's going to need them for this. Like, but the thing with that now is what TJ's after saying there is you rarely enough see Davey setting up with 3 in the full forward line, right? And if he goes with, we'll say, no, I think the Desi Hutchinson thing was a complete smoke screen for the league. Like, there's no way. No, there's no way Desi's going to be back that far. Desi will be above there. I suspect Mike Kiley with him, right? But that still allows Limerick to put Sean Finn on Desi and put Dan or Mike Casey on Mike Kiley, and it still allows Nash to come forward. Will Davy be tempted to say, well, look, I put Colin Dunford up top of the left and pin him back, pin back Mike Casey, pin back Nash and work it from there. Maybe try and crowd the middle a little bit by your half forward and coming deep.
Okay, so there's a couple of things in that, right? If Davy plays Desi Hutchinson out around the middle of the field of the half back line, he should collect the P45 and is what he should do, right? Because that's like saying Joe Dean, right, or Ben O'Connor, we're going to play out in the middle of the field. So you take your best asset away from the most vulnerable places, which is the full forward line. So Desi Hutchinson will have to be left inside there. Now, I know fellas will say, sure, Peter Casey or Shamie Flanagan ends up going back 60, 70, 80 yards, right? But that's because you've got an absolute benefit of riches up front with the 6 forwards that Limerick have, because you can leave 4 of them up there with Tom Morrissey, Gerard Hegarty, Cian Lynch, Aaron Gillan, and it doesn't matter which one of them get the ball because they're all capable of scoring. They're all scoring forward. So there's an embarrassment of riches in the Limerick forward line. But in terms of, and I said it a couple of weeks ago on the pod, like, if you are to take down Limerick, you cannot afford to give any one of the defenders space. You can't allow them. And unfortunately, the modern manager is trying to keep the goal scoring opportunities down. So he's going to play an extra man at the back, whether you call him a +1 or a sweeper, whichever camp you're in, is still the same thing. It's an extra man at the back. And what they're trying to do is just make sure we don't concede goals. But the reality is what you do then is you give the Limerick defenders, they're 5 forwards and there's going to be 6 defenders. And Limerick are so good at funneling the ball around, Anthony, there's going to be a spare man automatically. Now, whether Davy is going to play Colin Dunford on Barry and Barry Nash and keep back there, I'd say quite unlikely, to be honest with you, because I'd say Davy will play about 9 fellas behind the ball if he'll get away with it. In actual fact, in the match against Kilkenny when Waterford played, he played no full forward line, so he had 15 fellas behind the ball. So I expect that we'll see a football style of game coming from Davy Fitzgerald and Waterford. He'll pack everyone behind the ball and then he'll try and get the possession and run 6 fellas up along the field, back and forth with the ball, and try to beat Limerick that way. But like that could be plan Z or X or WY or 2/7, whichever way you want it. Like, do you know what I mean? But it certainly won't be Davy. It certainly won't be Davy's fault anyway after the game. Like, do you know what I mean? It'll be the players didn't go over the plan. Like,
yeah. The only thing I will say, Mark, is the game. There might have been some bits and methods to what Davy was doing in the league, right? I think you could see Ty de Burka out and out sweeper, right? And he could have, like, it's nearly gone NFL style, right? In terms of totally offensive or totally defensive, right? So if you take
that's what Davy now is gone total NFL, is it?
No,
are you thinking everybody else as well?
I think with other teams, like if you take, like, let's take the idea of Colin Dunford, Penn and Barry Nash, like when Limerick have the ball, right? Do you honestly think that Barry Nash is going to sit inside in the corner with Colin Dunford? He's not. Like, they're going to back themselves to mind the ball and keep the ball, right? And he's going to be in that triangle, looking to go forward when they have the ball. That's what I mean by totally the offensive, that they're going for it, they're minding the ball, and he's going to take a chance and go up the field. They know they're not going to keep a team scoreless, right? They're going to try and keep their mistakes to a minimum, make sure they pass the ball well. And I thought that maybe, to be fair to Davy, what he was trying to do was there bits of that in it, that he just basically said, right, we're totally offensive and we'll send everybody up. And then when we're totally defensive, we'll bring everybody back. I suppose the puck outs are crucial, I think, when you're playing against Limerick, both for and against. You have to have, let's say, some sort of a decent plan on your own puck out. Like, if you don't have somebody at 10 or 12 that can win primary, then you have to have it. Like what Brian said there about maybe some of the puck out working it through a crowded middle, it just didn't suit Kilkenny. Whereas last year, I thought in the All-Ireland final, TJ and definitely Wally in the second half, being able to win primary was a huge, huge asset to them. That's number one. And then the puck out, you're set up on the Limerick puck out. Like, are you going full press and take your chances 50-50 against Hego and Tom Morrissey and Keane running in space? Like, that's what's say on a manager's table today now. Like, if you go full press, right, you're going to potentially, because Limerick will come back to field, you're leaving 40, 50, 60 yards of space for Nicky to put the ball into. Are you better taking a chance with that, Dalo? Have you a better chance there than giving him the ball? That's a big question.
I think you have. I honestly think you have.
I think if you're going to take on Limerick, TJ, right, you need your 3 fastest players marking your 3 inside line players, Gillan, Flanagan and Peter Casey. And they have to track them speed-wise first and foremost, right? And then at the other side of the field, you have to stop the delivery of ball. Diarmaid Burns getting 2 or 3 seconds on the ball, Declan Hannon getting 2 or 3 seconds on the ball. I understand what's happening with Barry Nash, and he's a very good striker of the ball, and he's able to score. And like, it isn't this year that he's been doing that. He's doing that for the last 2 or 3 years that he's been allowed the freedom of the park. But if you give the Limerick defence time on the ball, they'll keep funneling the ball to the shooter. So that, for me, you have to mark their backs. And then up at the other side of the field, you need your 3 fastest players. And they have to be fluid. They have to be adaptable. They have to be able to play in any position of the field. Because what we see with Flanagan and Peter Casey is they're roving everywhere. What you've done is you've left Gillan as a constant at the edge of the square, And if he played 2 above, it'll be Flanagan for one ball, it'll be Peter Casey for another ball. Well, like, ultimately, TJ, your players are so good, right? You're a good bit ahead. And I reiterate what Dermot O'Brien said to us, and I think he's in his 80s now. And Dermot would have been a very good friend of myself and Dalo when we were in the bank, right? He would have been very supportive of us, is the word I will use. He said, Mark, he said, this isn't about 4 in a row. He said, the way Limerick are going at the moment, they could win 6 or 7 in a row. And I actually think he's probably right.
I settle down, Mark. Settle down. We'll
There's nothing coming. Listen, it's going to be very, very difficult. Very difficult. I don't see where the opposition is coming at this moment in time. Like the Dublin footballers weren't going to win 6 in a row, but they did win 6 in a row. And ye are on that track right now, TJ.
Yeah,
I actually said it to Paul Flynn last night. He was on football. I said, they're a bit like yourselves now, Flynn. Or I said, the way it is looking at the minute.
But the thing, like the thing that's so impressive about Limerick is they will figure you out. If you come with one game plan, they will figure you out. Either the players in the field are composed enough to hold on to the ball, to work it around, or at halftime, Kinnerk or Kiley, they'll get a message in and they'll figure it. So you can't just come with one set way of playing. And Mark is mentioning, don't let get the ball to their shooters. But should their shooters start from their cornerbacks? I mean, and definitely their half-back line. So if you stand off and concede possession to them, the ball is going to go to Burns or Hannon or Morrissey or Hayes, whatever combination. Like, they'll put the ball over from there. If you want to sit back and play this sweeper, you can't play this old style traditional sweeper just going to sit in the pocket. That's gone, So I think it has to be a much more sophisticated than that. And I think TJ's hit on it. It's this complete defensive structure, that when you don't have the ball, everyone is zoned in, so that someone is picking up Barry Nash when he's coming from cornerback on this run, that you're not switching off. And then there isn't a simple, it's not, there isn't a simple answer, but it's along those lines where you have to ask questions of them. If you play their game, you're not going to beat them. These guys have been doing this for 10 years. You're simply not just going to beat them at their game. And like, you're looking for crumbs. One piece maybe, is like, we did win a couple of aerial balls in the inside full forward line on 1 or 2 occasions. When we could get the ball into positions that we could play an angle ball in, we won 1 or 2 balls through Adrian Mullen, through Billy Ryan, whatever. They're half chances, but if you can get the ball, out, not to your full back line, but if you can find that kind of space in that half back midfield line and then deliver a quick ball in, you might have a chance. Because you have to get goals. You have to get goals against them. You're not going to outscore them points-wise, with the range of shooters they have.
Yeah, there was one other point in the second half where Billy Ryan caught a beautiful ball. I think it was either Massey Keown spun.
Yeah.
The pass was, he just didn't get the pass to him. It was a great chance of a goal. But Limerick turned that one down the field and got a point, big swing in the game.
Yeah.
But Mark, Limerick's forwards, would you believe, right, actually only scored 1-6 from play yesterday. Like forwards and subs in their forward line, 1-6 from play. So in terms of a stat, so it wasn't like they were shooting the lights out. So like Kilkenny, there was bits of it, what they did was right. For me, there was bits of it that they made fundamental, basic mistakes at key times in the game where they just coughed up an easy score. And
20 wides as well, not TJ.
The 20 wides, to be honest, but most of them came in the second half where there was a couple of wrong options.
Flabbery ones,
There seemed to be a bit of a breeze at that side of the field where it was kind of just dragging the ball, right? But that's when the fizz was going out of the game. But I just think that the setup and the structure, like you'll say, collectively, is going to be hugely important heading into the championship. I will be genuinely interested to see what Davy brings to the game. He does have a lot of tools in terms of his out-and-out sweeper and Tyg de Burke, who's probably maybe the best at playing that role in the game. Like, he does have fellas who can bomb on from distance with the likes of, let's say, maybe Jack Fagan, Callum Lyons, all those guys. Like, so I think that there was method to some of the stuff that he was trying, and I'll be curious to see just can he take it out? Like that will be key.
Do you know what I think he might try now? This is just a hunch now. I think he might try kind of a Twin Towers approach.
Yeah.
With Kiley and Austin inside and with Desi playing on the D in front of him. I think he might try it. Desi not going past his own 45 out to 45 now, Mark. Yeah. I don't mean him out in midfield. Just playing off him, because if they can break it, he'd make the runs.
Yeah. Would Gleeson be playing, Anthony? Sure, all the words are that Gleeson is out, right?
Gleeson is fine.
Yeah,
Gleeson's fine.
Right.
So, and this is one of my rumours now, not your rumours.
and Dalo, to prove that point, I go back to the Ireland final last year. I think with Walter Walsh and TJ's aerial winning ability, it definitely did work for Kilkenny for a while.
I think he might try that. I don't know. He never. If he hears me saying that, no, he won't do it.
Dalo, just a couple of things that you might have seen off camera yesterday, right?
Yes.
The linesmen were very active on the sideline yesterday, helping the referee in terms of where the frees were awarded, and that they were actively watching where the frees would be taken. But that was the first thing. The second thing, the medic for Limerick got a fair telling off by the fourth official, I'd say around the 25th minute for the amount of times he was on the field. I'm only guessing that with this because
the physio.
The physio, yeah, not James, not. He's Breen, isn't it? Is his name? Big strong man. So I just said to myself, it was obvious yesterday that the lads in the sideline were pretty active, and the whiteboard is gone from the water scenario, and the runner is gone, but definitely Mr. Breen's card is marked, I'd say, now for the championship.
No, that was Mark Melbourne. But Marky, you get these figueres every now and again that it's a medic, or let's say that it's the whiteboard, or whatever. It comes back to the basic skills of the game. And as you said there at the start, Limerick are executing into perfection. Their play is really, really good. They're just on-field transition to kind of work the opposition out. That's one of their key strengths as well, right? And you know what? If you want to keep believing that some of that stuff that the medic's going on with some little magic drill,
are the refs getting sicky throwing the ball?
Magic move. They definitely pulled a couple of times. I didn't see him. I didn't watch the game back in full now. Like I said, Dalo, you were watching it probably closer from where we were in the stand. Like, it's hard to know whether there were throws or not, to be fair to the referee, right? But again, part of that transition to get out of the tackle quickly, you have to move the hand pass very quick. There was one or two Kilkenny ones I thought were very good as well. There was definitely one in the first half, Brian, I don't remember this, where Adrian Mullen was just 3 Limerick fellas identified him and they went to nail him, right? And he definitely got the pass away. Whether he drew it or not, I don't know. But that's just part of training and part of the modern game. Again, will they be warned about it? They are now, but whether it was I don't know.
When TJ says he's very good from Kilkenny, it means the boy threw it and got away with it as well, so.
No, but anybody who's training a team at the moment will know, when you're doing those small-sided games and you want to get the ball transition, right, that quick hand pass is part of it. That's what they do. And all teams are doing that. So that's just not just Limerick. Yeah. It's there's a bit of focus on it because maybe the referee was trying to pick up on it. But
I was really impressed with what you said there about the point that Gillan got in the first half, where he kicked the ball out in front of him, right? I can tell you I had a great view of that, right? He side-footed it in front of him. And I must say, was it Ballybrown Rovers or something he was playing with over the Christmas Day on the soccer? He definitely got that anyway from the soccer field, because it was the side of the foot he got it with. I could tell it. He was outside. And the little swivels and the turns he have, right? It must be from inside in the box and the soccer. He's after learning all that from.
Look, Mackie, anybody, all those street footballers, street hurlers, when you're used to, and it's you're getting close attention, I'd say, from Sean Finn and training on a regular basis, it's whatever needs must to get the ball away, I would say.
They do a bit of that every year, though, Mark. They do a bit of that every year. One year they went boxing, they had a boxing tournament, and soccer this year was the way to get yourself ready. And Burnsy was allowed to stay in the Middle East for 2 months and just have it off now, whatever he touches now. John
I think it's very important that we remember this is a league. We go back to this time last year, we were having conversations, there was question marks about Limerick. The approach that some teams made to the league in 2023 will only be properly judged in the next couple of weeks. They may be referred to as master tacticians, not to engage with Limerick the way they went about their business, or then they'll be kind of saying, Jesus, you wouldn't face up to them. Right? And we won't make those calls for a couple of weeks. That's just the way it is. But the league is over now. What?
TJ, that's a fair point. And I mean, look, coming out after the match, from a Kilkenny perspective, from a Kilkenny supporter's point of view, mistakes will be made this time of year. Okay, the ball to hand from a Kilkenny perspective certainly wasn't as sharp as Limerick, and not as sharp as you'd like. It's league, I have no doubt by the time things turn around for championship, which is not too far away, and the lads will improve. It's just really from I suppose the physical perspective in terms of fronting up to Limerick and putting it to them. I was just a little bit disappointed on that the match kind of petered out in the second half as a spectacle, and it kind of writing was on the wall. But yeah, look, as you said, if we're sitting here in middle of August talking about an All-Ireland final between these two lads, the league will be, well, it won't be forgotten. We'll still be referring to it, but it'll be a very different match, I can be sure. But
Hoagie, they'll be booking the holidays in August because they'll be over a month.
I suppose
because Lander's split season is really working for everyone.
Don't give Dalo the opportunity, will you? God, jeez, I'm sick in the head.
Well, thank God, lads, the league is over now and it got to finish. It deserved really yesterday, to be honest. I think, even the split season is probably here to stay as much as all 3 more weeks. I think would make no difference to club players. It's ridiculous. That's my take on it. I've been clear on it all the time. It's no difference it's making, except that they're down 2 or 3 lads on J1s in America for the first round of the championship. But let's go back to the 6-team Division 1, I think, lads. I know Offaly now are up to Division 1, so they'll be saying, so where the big counties, let's say the 7, 8 big counties, have a real threat of relegation. And these are a relegation final, a straight final, top 2, and a Division 1B final with one team going up. I think you really improve it straight away, and you get way more meaningful matches because teams would not want to be relegated. And I'm just saying from a clear point of view, once they hammered Westmeath in the first match, I'm sure we're not going down now anyway. That's kind of, we had a long year last year, we had a tough year, we had fierce battles with Limerick. We need to focus totally on championship. And I don't know, if it works, mighty. If it doesn't, people will look back and say, needed to be more competitive in the league, and you weren't. It'll all be judged on championship.
Yeah, I think that from a manager's point of view, from the last round of the league to the first round of the championship, for, let's say, the likes of Davy and Brian Lohan, right? They had all their players, let's say 30-odd players, for a 5-week block. And I think we all know what can be done when you have everything available to you. You've got a clear run to the first round of the championship. So it will be interesting to see. And as I said, we'll be the judges of it down the road, and we'll be kind of giving out about some and saying some guys are really, really smart doing what they're doing. I just maybe see what they were trying to do in terms of not fully engaging with some of the teams. It made sense. Whether we'll be giving out about them down the road, we'll wait and see.
That's the thing. Well done, Limerick. Well done, Allianz, on supporting the whole thing. And I think the structure is the same for next year. I'd love to see people saying,
"It is, yeah."
Let's have another look at it, though. Why can't we change?
My view on the structure, Dalo, is there should be 8 teams in the league. Give them 7 league matches, 1 weekend after the other, no break. Get your 3 weeks from the league final to the first round of the championship, top 2 into the league final, and my view is the bottom 2 teams should be relegated.
Yeah, you will have a threat then. You will have a threat. Yeah,
because one team is no good, Anthony. Because I'll tell you why, right? There'll be a weaker team always at the bottom, right? Because the team that'll come up from Division 2 could possibly go down again straight away. So I think you should have 2 teams going down and 2 teams going up, and then I think over time you'll have a lot of movement.
Well, with the 6, though, Mark, with the 6 teams, I can tell you,
I think
you want the 6 teams. I tell you, you'll be guaranteed the relegation final. I didn't play in them now, but I managed in 2 of them. One we lost to Galway in a replay, devastation with the Dubs, and then another one we went down into Walsh Park because there was a toss of a coin and beat Derek and Dan and all those, and it was nearly like a championship match down there. With the 6 teams, you're guaranteed.
Okay, but Anthony, I don't think there will be 6 teams, right? Because if you were setting out a Division 1 league in the morning, you'd have the 5 Munster teams will be in it. Galway and Kilkenny will be in it, which would be 7, and there'll be either Wexford or Dublin, possibly in it as well. So, and I hope I haven't left out anyone in length of the. But I think you'll need 8 teams in it.
You could just base it on the top 3 from both sides this year. You could just say that was the number.
You could have went down, yeah. You could.
Yeah. Look, I just think this didn't work, and when there's no threat of relegation, teams are just experimenting. People are playing 18 quid, go in there and come walking out the gate, back up the town of Innis, saying, "What did I go over there for?"
Yeah, I agree, Dalo. Some of the league matches this year have been brutal. The Dublin Kilkenny match, Kilkenny Waterford match. Not just in terms of the intensity and what was that. There was nothing at stake, so you can't blame either side. But if they do go to, if they decide to go back to a 6 or 18 format, whatever, I think they also need to think very clearly about how they're going to support the teams below in terms of the Offaly's, the Kildares, the Westmeads, the whatever those make. Because fine, you go to 8 teams. I played in that situation. Dalo, you were over Dublin, and every league match was an absolute dogfight, and it was great. But if you're on about, again, you come back to the thing. But if you're on about trying to promote hurling out beyond the 10 or 12 counties, I think there has to be a kind of conscious effort to try and also facilitate and support. Now, what that looks like, I don't know, but you certainly need to give them an opportunity to play in some of on the big stage, whether it's before the league final or whatever that, and give them because and we'll come on to it. The likes of Kildare and Offaly this year, and Antrim and Westmeath have made huge strides, in Division 1, and being competitive. If they get shunted down to kind of secondary division, then what does that say to them as well? So there's no simple answer, but
no. The only thing with that is, Huggy, you would have probably 2 of, we say if we sail as 8, you'd have 2 of those down there, so you'd really have 2 testers, and yet you'll be meeting the teams that are probably with your Joe McDonough levelish. You might have 7-8 teams in Division 2, where you get games against your own standard, and you'll
give that Division 2. But give that Division 2 the focus as well. That it's not just kind of a by at the end of the round.
You could have 2 teams coming up and 2 teams going down. You could have 2 teams coming up and 2 teams going down. Yeah. So that would make it really,
But the point is, you have a league coming up now, essentially. I know we're referring to it as the championship, right? And effectively, I think no matter what you do here, it's still going to be a prelude to what we're going into now, right? It's going to be used as a competition to get ready for this piece. I hear what you're saying about maybe having a little bit more bite and a little bit more cut on it. I was even suggesting maybe the league champions, and it would be Limerick this time, that they'd get, let's say, a freebie that are guaranteed to be in the knockout stages. I don't know, maybe something a little bit different.
Jesus.
Would be good, but
things are bad enough.
I just think you have to put yourself in a manager's position that if you are readying yourself, and ultimately all these guys are going to be judged on the next number of weeks, right? We all know that, and that's just the way the way the hammer falls, right? So they have to ready themselves, both panel wise, player wise, get everything ready, because what's coming now is going to be very, very tough. We're fighting here for 3 places in Munster. And because you could throw a blanket over the couple of positions there. There's very little between them now.
Yeah. No, we'll be looking forward to 2 weeks' time. I think myself and Mr. Sheedy were all day yesterday in Montrose. We're in the Hyde Park in 2 weeks' time watching Waterford and Limerick. And I told him, bring the laptop and have Jay go on your laptop, kid, for Clare and Tip. And we can fight about it, watching it above in the Dr. Hyde Park. Because there hardly be too many places around Roscommon now. We get down to 4 roads there to Simon's Pub there on 4 roads. They might have GA go for the hurling. But that'll tell you what the outside broadcast crack. So yeah, we were dependent. If Mayo had won yesterday, we'd have been in Salt Hill. We might have got a chance at some pub in Galway City. Would have had the GA go on for the hurling. But we're in the Hyde. But anyway, such is the championship.
You're all right, Dalo. I have a few contacts in Roscommon, by. So I find
there isn't anywhere.
If you're badly stuck, I get onto the Murray clan up there in Roscommon. They'll take care of you and Sheedy, all right.
There isn't anywhere you have in context. Lads, big tough as well now. The Division 2A final last Sunday, and 6 days later to come out and play Joe McDonough. So TJ might get you to comment on that. Big win for Kerry, first of all, up to down. Down have gone back a little bit, I would say. But Stephen Malumphey, big call during the week, dropped Podge Boyle. I think Podge Boyle's only game ever missing since the Joe McDonough started. One of Kerry's best forwards, if not the best forward, himself and Shane Conway, I suppose. And Jason Diggins from Causeway would be fine halfback, and just dropped them for a breach of discipline, and they had a big win. What I'd like to see now is maybe that he'd let him back now. That he did, he did reprimand him, but don't exclude him now for the rest of the year. Say, all right, lads, you got your ticking off now. Come back in and toe the line. But Stephen obviously would have spent a lot of time with Davey, I suppose, as well as his manager. So would that discipline kind of thing. But they had a big win. great game in Tullamore. I would have streamed this now if there's on anything. This is another pity, I think, that we couldn't buy this anywhere. I'd love to pay 10 or 15 quid for this. Offaly Laois, good game. Laois, all the hurling the first half. Crucially, Offaly 2 goals into the wind, and then kind of took over. Took a while. Paddy Purcell brought Laois back into with a goal. Took a while. I think they could meet again in a final, maybe now. Offaly certainly going well. Have the up into Division 1 and have that first round win against their old rivals Laois. And you have to say, Owen Cahill, lads, he's a fair forward at this level. Like he's not clocking up serious scores and doesn't miss a free. Carlo then absolutely mopped the floor with Kildare. TJ, do you think it was it? No, Carlo, as Liam said last night, I'd say had their eye on this match. While the league, they weren't going qualifying for the top 3 in the league, and they were totally ready for this one in Carlow. Kildare hangover, Tej. Awful talk about getting to Division 1.
Yeah, and they would like their campaign in the league was excellent, and like would have been lined up a long way out, perfect for Carlow. Like to knowing everything about them, just have their homework done, and then go and attack them. And I said it was all done in the first half. Like I said, like I was watching you on the telly last night, and I obviously saw the highlights from Tullamore, but like that's a huge score from Carlow. And what was it at halftime? It was something like 4-13 or something to 5 or 6 points at halftime. So job done. Like so, yeah, that can happen. And like there's no doubt, like is it in any era, the transition from league to championship, there's always a kind of an open of the ante, no matter what level it is. Right, when you come out of league, as Hogie said there's a change, and you have to move with it. Like I said, there's an open the ante in training. There's a bit more of a cut about it. And if you kind of just maybe fall into that little rut, maybe that you tend to think, you know what, we've had a great league campaign now, we're going well. Yeah. That has happened loads of teams in the past. So I would definitely think that Kildare just got caught in the headlights of the league there for sure.
Yeah, have to bounce back now next weekend. It's such an attritional tournament to Joe McDonough. You get very little time to get. It's tough going. So lads, great stuff. Couple of other things came up, obviously, lads, just to talk about. Like it just broke there early last week, I think. The GA banning any references to charities on jerseys, Mark. I think it's a queer one, isn't it? And I know great plans for later on for the Tipperary Limerick game, where actually in the stadium where Dylan Quirk died at, I think Tip were going to leave the sponsors off the jersey, and they're just wearing the Dylan logo, and Limerick don't wear the sponsors, obviously, so they were going to both wear a set of jerseys for the Dylan Quirk Fund, and we would have supported that here in the pod. And like, why did the GA come up with these ones every so often? Like, who would this hurt?
I don't know. I genuinely don't know, and it's not in the spirit of the nature of GA to be bringing in rules to stop charities or foundations or stuff like that. I like. What makes you laugh at the whole thing, like, is they were quite willing to take money off of Guinness for a long, long time, and and then they turned around and they banned Guinness from sponsoring the whole championship, like, and yet we have, sponsors, and foundations and charities. Like, I think if you have the permission of the sponsors and it's a one-off scenario or a one-off game, and there's commemorative jerseys being there's not going to be a wholesale sale on them, and you're just wondering what's behind it. Has it something to do with, say, the 1916 commemorative jerseys that were brought out last year, or there was ones about Jack Lynch and Christy Ring and Cork? I don't know what's behind it, Anthony, but I think if you have permission from the current sponsors, that if there's a one-off game and the sponsors don't mind, and you go in, you get your paperwork right, and you get permission to make these one-off jerseys, I just don't understand why you would be bringing in a rule to stop the jerseys. Just disappointing.
Do we get the reason for it, Dalo? No,
no, I don't know. Yeah, I honestly don't know. Was it sponsors complaining, or I don't know? Yeah,
they usually have their reasons. But look, there's an awful lot of charities and foundations doing huge work, and the Dylan Quirk Foundation is actually going to help like GA players up and down the country. So it
could save lives. Like
it could save lives. Yeah. Look, I'm involved with a charity. I'm ambassador for Cleanest Foundation in Limerick with Brendan and the team there, and they do huge work. So I'm very familiar with, and I think in fairness to people up and down the country, there's usually, and GAA players are really, really good with their time to help charities all over the country. I mean, because they have the profile, they usually kind of get brought to events to try and maybe give, let's say, something a G up, and they give their time freely, which is unbelievable. So it seemed like a good fit. And as Mark said there, when the original sponsors were willing to give up the space, you just would wonder what the reason. They must have a reason. So you'd wonder what it is.
Yeah, a weird one. And I suppose there was a charity game in Carrick on Saturday evening, Hoagie, and we all saw the clips. I suppose at this stage it's done the full rounds, and just so disappointing to hear the comments directed towards Lee Chin. I suppose I had a lot to say about it last night. I suppose that's that was Jackie asked us straight out. I suppose myself and Liam, and very, very, very unfortunate for Liam Cahill and his men as well, because who'd have nothing to do with that, and the respect that Lee Chin would be held in would be incredible, but just so unsavoury, that sort of thing, isn't it?
It's dreadful. It was really, look, it was shocking to see it. To hear it, I suppose we've seen the footage. Look, I suppose not to jump on the witch hunts and the Twitterati and go down targeting the individual. I think more in a general point of view, I think it's important that the GA come out with a very strong stance on it to send the message that it's not acceptable. It's not going to be tolerated. I suppose I was happy to see both sets of players take a stance on it. You see it in other sports, and there's a lot of kind of conversation afterwards, but very little done. And even when players are subject to it, that both sets of players, albeit I think they were in the middle of thumping the head off each other or whatever, there's a bit of a melee, but they came together and said, "We're not having this," and walked off the pitch. And it's nice to see that bit of kind of camaraderie, because as you say, like it's no reflection on the tip players either. I mean, they were equally disgusted with it. So from a player's point of view, it showed a kind of a stance. Look, Alan, this is not acceptable. We're not happy with this either. But I just, look, I feel for Lee Chin. You mentioned it yesterday, Dalo, like a phenomenal player, a fantastic ambassador for the game, and it's not acceptable. Simple as, and I think we're all in agreement on that. And I think it's important that whatever the GA do, it sends out a strong message to the wider GA community that this is not, we're all about inclusivity and trying to encourage new people into the GA. And it's easy to say that, but you kind of have to stand up now and make a stand on these things when situations like this occur as well, But look, hopefully it's the last time we'll see something like this come up, and I can only reiterate what you said in the Sunday game last night. It's really disappointing for our game to be spoken about, and in these terms we should be just talking about the games and the sport itself, not about this kind of racial abuse of a star of the game. Yeah, big time. And I know you concur, boys. You no need to. Do you know what? It's funny enough. Liam, I suppose, was in management for long enough, and I was there 9 years. And I was saying, do you know what? Like, sure, Darragh Egan, you'd nearly use a Torelli, wouldn't you? And I don't mean to be laughing. You'd say we're not going great, and they got hockeyed in the game against Tip as well. And he was saying, "By Jesus, we stood there together for Lee. By let's lift it now from here." I'd be losing the angle anyway, and I think Lee wouldn't mind you using the angle either, because we do feel maybe that Kilkenny and Galway are ahead in Leinster, and who's going to get that third spot? I think he'd be saying to them, "Come on, you stood united for your great teammate, who's a great ambassador, I think, for hurling, is Lee Chin, and we might just use it to rally up now for a couple of weeks before they go to Salthill, which would be a tough one for them." Marco, this day last year, you gave us a 66-1 winner for the Irish Grand National Fairy House. We to go very early in the morning that year with the recording, because Mr. Ryan was he left waiting for him to bring him to Fairy House. But he's going painting today for the day. How the mighty have fallen, like fucking painting.
Louise is the champion of this year, boy.
Yeah.
Right. Well played.
Marco, there's a lot of money for the two-picker, your horse, who has moved to John McConnell's stable now.
Ridiculous. I have no idea where that is coming from. It certainly isn't mine, because I have had a very busy morning scanning mails. There I 4 to be scanned at 7:15 this morning with the vet, and I won't even make the races because I must got 2 of them covered. I'm going to Paul Cashman's and Harper's 3 to get a covered all person, and I'm going to Workforce down in Waterford later on this evening at 8 o'clock to get a very good mare covered. So it's a busy day all around on this bank holiday Monday for fellas like Dalo, who'll be pulling pints inside and making money. I'll be on the road today. So
that's not work at all, is it? Pulling pints. Standing there listening to lads getting locked and giving out to because you give them the loser of the freaking Grand National.
Well, look,
have you a winner for our listeners?
I have an interest. I have an interest in one there today in the National. I have the half sister to Esther Benito Bella at home, and I'd be hoping that that'll have a very good run. And my good friend Paddy O'Hara, who actually is a partner in the Toothpicker with me, he's heading to Fairy House, Dalo. If that's a tip in itself, right? He's not going to Cork to see the Toothpicker running, and his buddy fancies the Gopher. So for any fellow out there who wants a small few quid and an each way chance, the Gopher I'm on today, and I'll be just sitting back and watching Esther Benito Bella do its best.
I'll take a note of that, Landers. I might even throw a few quid on it myself now that my membership is paid up.
Don't go mad now. Don't go mad.
Are we talking greyhounds or horses here?
Hey, there's no way you'll be allowed to spend more than €200 in a week, for God's sake. You're on a ban now. You're on a ban.
Yeah, Hoagie has rejoined Come On Racing, lads. He's renewed. He's an ambassador, so he has rejoined. He's paid. So all you out there that haven't renewed your membership yet, if Hoagie can pony up to 200.
Come here, there's a couple of other Kenny fellas. You know what we'll have to do now? We'll have to get something like collecting the membership, like back in the club, like fellas good at collecting money. So any fella in Kenny now. I'm saying he'd have to give me a fair stick for the last. So I won't mention his name, but he played corner forward, right? So Hoagie, if you have any chance, you might call over there to go and collect a few quid off the corner forward, would you?
So Jack, if you're listening there in the background, you better on Twitter put up the Gopher there just in case this show, because last year the show, Larry was on holidays last year, and the show didn't go up, and a lot of people missed. They were listening. Said, Landers give the winner of the Grand National. I didn't hear it.
I know.
Up there.
Two in a row, the Gopher.
The Gopher, yeah.
But your teacher probably has one as well for the National today.
Yeah, well, I was actually going to give you 3 for Fairy House, believe it or not. Right?
Jesus, go on, get the virus out.
The National is very open. Like JP's horses are running very well. He's a couple of nice winners over the weekend. He's got one the National called the Devil's Coachman for Noel Mead. It's probably around an 11 or 12 to 1 shot. I think he's a graded horse in this handicap. I think if it stays, it's got a mighty chance. Mark Walsh rides there. And the other 2 are 2 of Willie. Willie's been banging in winners left, right, and centre. I think he had 8 winners yesterday, talking about domination. He's got 2 horses running today. There actually could be both perceived second strings. One is called Gust of Wind in the second race, which I know Dalo was on the other one, and Ballyburn in the last race in the bumper. I know that both of them would be.
He's a non-runner now, T.
Oh, he's a non-runner.
Non-runner, yeah.
Didn't know that. You were obviously up earlier than me. But
you were panting.
Gust of Wind to beat Blood Destiny in the second race of Fairy House today, and the Devil's Coachman in the National would be 2 for me. Okay, listeners, we'll try and get those out to you.
Breda Hayes, Mark had a lovely day in her cosy seat yesterday from a treat of Come On Racing. And in fairness, she gave away her own tickets to any other member.
We were lucky that we had another member that was able to pick them up. So being part of the Come On Racing Club, brought Breda and her friend Bernie to the soft seats of the premium yesterday. And they had a great day. I met him above there, and it's really, the stadium is very good, to be fair, and for people that have signed up for the premium tickets, I think they're getting an awful lot of enjoyment out of it. You can have a drink up there, have a bite of grub, meet your friends, meet your clients. It's a big social thing, to be fair. But she was lucky enough to be drawn out of it, and so we must. So the memberships have been very good, to be fair. We've well over 50% of the members signed up in the space of 5 weeks, but we do need to get a push on, because at the end of April, we're going to close it at the end of April, to be fair, and the WhatsApp group that we have, currently the message has gone out. We're going to stop going into that because we have to set up a new group, like, you know, for this year's members. So I'd say for any fella out there who hasn't paid the membership, please get the membership in. We have 3 very exciting horses in Willie Mullins's, and they're all on the move at the moment. And I would expect to run up within the next 4 to 6 weeks. So we are talking to Jim Bolger and Willie for a stables tour as well. And both have agreed it's only a case of filling in the dates really more than anything. And I think we're talking about taking a table of punches down. I think TJ, you might know a little bit more about that. We'll get Patrick Mulcahy, yeah.
Ringing me and get on with recording.
I know, yeah. But sure, that'd be typical. And you know what? The best thing I did for the fantasy was getting rid of him as a selector. Because I tell you, he's only football.
Was that the key to it?
That's the key to it. He was coming in with football players. That's out, Buff Eagle. Out.
Man, Buff. So great, yeah. We just kept people maybe to like just renew it, lads. I know I've met good few lads that said, Jesus, I must renew come on, race them. Just do it, will you? It's like everything else. If you keep getting WhatsApp messages, you probably don't renew it. So you'll be off the WhatsApp messages in 2 weeks.
And to be fair, if every time we send out a message, there'd be 10 memberships come in, and it's no different. Jesus, I must do that.
Yeah.
You know, so just get clicking, guys.
Okay. Fogras, boys, before we go. I have one. Will I just run with it? I'll just have the one. Great pal Colin Harris, great Kilmiley, Kerry wingback, the legend, now living in Ballincollig, and his young lads are wearing Cork jerseys, going to matches now. Colin Harris, as they'd say below, mighty man, Colin, a great old pal. But friend of his, Noel Kelleher, Noel's son Dara was diagnosed with leukemia 2-3 years ago. And he's only just around 6 now. So Noel is doing a 12-hour cycle in Ballincollig GA Saturday week, I think, is it 22nd?
22nd.
Yeah, 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. For the Mercy Hospital Foundation. And what he's doing it is for the POONs, they're called the Pediatric Oncology Outreach Nursing Services. So they basically are the nurses that are sent out to houses. What a godsend. They have to do, you know, to help at home, not to bring the patients in. So there's an I Donate under Derek Kelleher there, lads. And if anyone could give a couple of bob, I know there's a lot of charity stuff going on at the moment. There is, I was promoting a lad, a friend of ours, a neighbour of ours at home that's gone off to Calcutta for 2 months to work with the poor over there. Jamie Mulqueen, he's also on I Donate. So there is a lot on, but anything. They're not looking for 50 quid. They're not, you know, anything. A fiver is a major help. It all adds up. So just to give that plug there to Noel doing the 12-hour cycle, fair play. And I'm sure everyone in Mercy Hospital will be thrilled with anyone that contributes. That's me on the Fogras for this week.
I just have one as well, Marco, and then you can, and we'll go to Hogan. We can finish with you, Marco. Adair GA are hosting championship preview night this Saturday night, coming in the Woodlands in the Treehouse. Just look ahead to the championship. The league is over, as we know. So just to look ahead to see what's coming down the track. Dalo and Mr. Landers will be there. So great night planned. Usually a bit of good fun, and I mean, good look ahead to the championship and to make a few.
Have we done it?
We have done it, yeah. A few songs.
A bit of crack,
yeah, a bit of crack, yeah. And we have Davy Burke from Galway as well. Actually, just want to send best wishes to Davy. I think he's having his operation this weekend on the cruise ship. So he's coming down to see if he can sort us out and maybe have a rattle off us. And we have Big Dan as well from Waterford this Saturday night in the Woodlands for their GA.
Okay, Marco?
So, Dalo, in fairness, the lads from Ballincollig were on to me about the Poons. You know, it's an unbelievable charity and unbelievable what the nurses in the Mercy do. I mean, to go out and treat kids with cancer or leukemia and stuff like that. They're treating the kids at home, so they can leave the kids in the family home with their parents and their siblings and stuff like that. Like, it's just massive. And you know, Johnny Dwyer just said to me, look, anything that's being raised from the charity, the 12-hour cycle, is all going to Poon. So, you know, fair play, absolutely brilliant. I was in Limerick, Brian, during the week, and I was filling up with diesel, and this trucker came off. He spotted me filling up with diesel. He's from Denmark. Brian O'Callaghan is his name. So there's a Glen Fest on between the 28th and the 30th of April, and there's a lot of stuff going on there on the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I see Don Lowe, John Milan and Breach Cockery are there on the Thursday night discussing grassroots, whether that's hurling or football, I don't know. And there's lots of other people there. And on the Sunday then there's a barbecue and there's Cork versus Waterford on the big screen and there's a trad session and there's anything you want that's in Glenrothes between the 28th and 30th of April. Bunvin GA are running a predictor for the Munster Championship. I was approached in a Shannon last week, and this fella produced all the information out of his pocket. He says, I know chance you throw that at the program. So he didn't give me his name, but Bunvin GA, Munster Hurling Championship predictor, predict the winning team and the winning margin for each Munster Hurling Championship. And I got contacted by a number of people from Bride Rovers who have recently bought Pines Field and they're doing a massive development there. I think they're putting on 2 new fields there and they have a huge amount of functions coming up. Some of them include a poker classic and then there are future events called the Sister Act, which is a 45 drive, the Field, which is a Grand National Buster, the Braveheart, which is the poker classic, Michael Collins. It's a movie table quiz on the bank holiday Sunday the 30th of April. And the Snapper, the Bride Rovers Legends Hurling game. And I can tell you now, that's certainly, when I played against a lot of them, the Murphys now, there's a big gang of them there. You want to be avoiding them at all stages now, right? Yeah. And I said that's probably why it's called the Snapper. Because if you're anywhere close to any of them, you could get snapped at any stage. So massive fundraiser going on in Bride Rovers and a huge shout out to them. They have very, very big plans for the future.
Great stuff. Hoagie, anything you want to give a shout out to? Are you okay?
Yeah, no, good, Dalo. Nothing on my side.
Good. So we managed, we were saying an hour, TJ, because you were anxious to get back to the painting and before the racing starts. But we've managed to go to the hour.
I have extra brushes.
Hour and 32. That's because Hoagie, they were on to me there during the week when they knew you were coming on and said, like, especially last night, the number of texts I got off the two of them saying we'll ridden him in the morning, like just getting back for all the years.
They've gone easy. They've been gentle on me. I appreciate it, lads. I remember later on here.
We wouldn't do that to you, kid.
You wouldn't, no.
Now that you have the 200. Now that you have the €200 paid for the Command Racing Club, we might give you a scotching on it.
Yeah.
Great
stuff, lads.
But I got a bucket load of Easter eggs to go in and eat now in a minute, so I'll have to leave you to it.
Okay. Good man, Hoagie. Okay, lads. Fantasy. Oh, Jesus, I forgot about fantasy. I'd be shot. I was trying to fucking get away with it, Jack. Why are you putting it up?
Hey!
Mr. Landers.
Hey!
Yeah,
Winner all right.
188 points this week. Aaron Gillan, captain. Shane McGrath, we knew had no captain going into it. So he was in trouble. And even Colin O'Neill went to hit a free TJ and put it wide there. So,
this didn't work for me.
Yeah,
I wasn't beaten by far.
Not on my catch, Mr. Sheedy, but I was 1 point short of him. We were looking at it yesterday saying who's, and I'm in the bottom half. And so well done, Marco. It's only the league, though, kid.
No, yeah, back-to-back, Dalo, National Hurling League champions. Fair play to Barry Nash, the only fella to select Barry Nash in his team. Like a free scoring cornerback. He'll be in a lot of championship teams, I'd say, after this weekend. So very, very happy. Because it was tricky enough after I last top spot. You were slagging me there a couple of weeks ago. I was going down the wrong road, like, you know, but at least fair play to Gillan, right? Once TJ said to me a couple of weeks ago, I was listening, you see. I asked the question, who's going to be the free taker for the championship? TJ left the cat out of the bag. He thought to be Gillan. So out with Bennett, in with Gillan, top man, 2 fellas, and then Barry Nash to get the goal yesterday. I sent him a text to say the only way I get beat is if Cathal O'Neill came up trumps yesterday because he was captain in TJ's team. And I just said to him after about 30 minutes, I said, Barry Nash got the goal. I didn't see any sign of Cathal O'Neill yet. Is he playing? So.
He wasn't that bad, no, first team.
No. I know he was bad, but you have revealed the key. TJ about to go in 6.
Yeah, you have revealed the key that was getting rid of Patrick Mulcahy off the selection committee.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Gee, he was wrecking my head, for God's sake.
Okay, so and our listeners, Mr. Hurler on the ditch from Nana, good score again, and he was always looking like the winner. I think James Daly knew he couldn't catch him. So well done, Hurler on the ditch. Great pal of mine on Twitter. But well done, great score. 1777, nosy stuff, obviously. Great score, 185 as well from Brendan Noonan from the Mills.
Brendan.
Yeah. So yeah. Good stuff, lads. We'll see how it works out in the championship. Hoagie, you have 2 weeks to get your championship team picked. Get down to it now. Get down to it. When you're way over in the States there now and you're running a hotel room, get out the biro and the pad there and just get...
It's the next thing in the list, Dalo.
Yeah. And Hoagie, I don't want you to have that because that is a permanent residency down in the old Blackrock Road in the 3.4 million mansion of Sean McGrath. Mr. Sean McGrath, Glen Rovers, now posh hockey trainer. Well done, lads. Shout out to the fantasy as well. Like, championship's only 2 weeks away. I know the lads, in Rua are trying to get a push on because it's so close to the league and one competition finishing. So it's great crack, lads, the fantasy. We know Mark won't win the championship. So, look, get in there and I'm hoping I won the Clarecastle one. I can't see the results. Surely Higgy didn't pass me out. I don't think he did. So once you win,
will you give me a price? Are you going to give me a price in the championship? Are you going to give me a price? And me to win the championship?
I'll give you 3-1. You won't win it now. You're the farm man. I'll give you 3-1 on yourself. Your favourite, like. Your favourite.
I tell you what I'll do, all right. I have 3 pints of course.
That'll do. Murty Brown's price scores now.
We're mocked it. We're mocked it. 3 free pints. And if I don't be in the winners of class, I'll buy you 3 pints.
That'll do. I make it even cheaper with nice creamy Guinness.
Well, in fairness to one of your girls during Cheltenham, didn't she go €4 for the pints of Guinness for the day of the races?
No, worse again. Do you know what she did, Orla?
Free.
She went, €4 for the fucking rugby.
Okay.
No, I tell you,
all right.
I've spoken to her since she was in Italy for the week. I'm not talking to her. €4 for rugby. The Dune I'm getting off the likes of Michael Dillon up there, big rugby fans. We not mentioning rugby on this podcast, like, huh? Anyways, yeah, that's what she did for the day. And in fairness, the punters came too, because it was on all day. Of course, there was 3 matches on. And it drew them in fairness to her, and she put the prices up once the final whistle was gone in the Irish match again. So, yeah, little entrepreneur, that lady. Well done, lads. Okay, great stuff. Hoagie, you've a lot of work to do. We leave you out of it. Don't send any Easter eggs over to the lads there. Gobble them all down yourself because, come on, Hoagie, you're better than this. Come on.
Don't worry. League is league, championship.
Oh, spoken like a real cat.
He's right.
Good luck, lads.
Good luck. The league is over.
We'll talk to you.
A grain of rice is going to tip the scale. Just remember that, lads.
There's a small bit of a needle there.
Now, come on, Mayo, you've got to get Andy Moran into the game.
Our mission was to show that we're no longer the whipping boys of Munster.